Hi, this is Matt from Modern Samurai, and today I'd like to talk about what some people know as the fence. So this is our non-aggressive stance that we look to in aggressive situations, things like that. So it was called the fence and made famous by the fence by Geoff Thompson in his seminal work, and still to this day it holds great credibility. It's a fantastic body of work that Geoff's left us over the years, and would absolutely highly recommend that to anyone. So this is in no way a criticism of what's gone before, quite the opposite. This is more about looking to add on a little bit of information. So the thing is, in this day and age, if you are still working from a fence circa 1993, 94, then you're not really up to date with what's current and what's needed now, because the world has moved. Okay, so what I mean by that is the physical has remained pretty much the same. That's pretty constant. That's not that, it doesn't really change that much and hasn't done for a very long time. What changes is the environment around you. And that has changed significantly. So if we go back to when Geoff was talking about the times in his book and the times that he was working and the times that he referenced, and through the time when he became just, really, really very well recognized, CCTV cameras weren't a thing. They weren't everywhere. They weren't like they are today. So to put that in perspective, today in the UK, there's an estimated 5.2 million CCTV cameras. That's one for every 13 people in the country in the UK alone, right? When we look at smartphones, 87% of adults in the UK have a smartphone. So that equates to 55.5 million smartphones in the UK, right? Now that is a vast amount of ability to record what you're doing, to be able to see what you're doing, and to be able to present it and edit it in a way that may not be representative of what actually occurred. And so we have to factor these things in now. So when we're looking at our non-aggressive positioning, we're looking at our conversations in the interview, when we're looking at soft skills overall, and we're looking at how we're now going to work within that environment, we also want to be very, very aware of CCTV and people with smartphones. Everybody will be very quick to get a phone out and start filming you. And most of us have seen clips on YouTube, on Facebook, that sort of thing, where what we've actually seen is a very, very small portion of the whole. What we've seen is a little bit, enough to get somebody hung, not necessarily the whole story, telling you what happened from start to finish and the build up and why these things occurred. So we've got to be very, very critical in the way that we analyze this, and we've got to be aware that whatever we do is now going to be second guessed, often on a global stage when it gets put out to the world. Now, that's really, really important to understand, because public opinion matters. Okay, and if you're looking at the legal aspect, of course that matters as well, because if they've got footage of you being aggressive, taking an aggressive stance, moving aggressively forward, acting in a way to suggest that you actually wanted to participate in violence, that you actually instigated that violence, then you're far more likely to suffer legal consequences to that. Now, again, I'm not saying that you should always think about this end fight before you've dealt with the other fights, because that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is try and set yourself up in the correct manner. So there are a number of different elements to keep into consideration with this. So first and foremost, more than likely you're going to be viewed by other people, right? If they've got a camera, they'll film it, they'll put that out on social media, that sort of thing. CCTV used all the time now towards evidence gathering. Apparently, roughly around 25% of all crimes are now partially solved through the use of CCTV, and can have a direct influence on that. So it's very well worth bearing that in mind. And then secondly, we've got to look at the realities of what we're talking about here, which is also, when we're talking about conflict management, we can talk about things called triggers and inhibitors. Now, I will go into that in a lot more depth when we talk about on the soft skills seminars and the courses that I deliver like that. We go right into this in a lot more depth, and we cover it in a much more in-depth manner, obviously, right? But for now, it's enough to know that there are a thing called triggers and a thing called inhibitors, right? So triggers is basically things that will set people off, that is likely to cause an argument or make something worse, right? So that could be any number of different things. Inhibitors are the exact opposite. They're the things that are likely to calm a situation down, that are likely to rein somebody back in, that are likely to encourage somebody not to take that physical step. And again, cameras are significant within that conversation now because they can be used to that purpose. You can actually specify that to somebody who's being aggressive towards you. You can say, hey, look, you're on camera, this is all being videoed, you know, this isn't going to go away. If you flee the scene, it's going to follow you. People can understand that now. But also you see a lot more security people, police forces, that sort of thing. They're using body cameras more and more. Drones are being used more and more at things like, policing events, large crowds, that kind of stuff. So the odds are now that you're more likely to be on camera than not in an urban built up area. And so we have to understand that first and foremost, and then we have to implement that into our way of thinking and the way we look at how we treat sort of self-defense and this non-aggressive stance. So when we go back to circa early 90s Geoff Thompson days, we didn't have to factor this in, and we didn't have to take into consideration the fact that we would be judged further down the line by what could be very misrepresentative video. And to put that in example, there was a clip a long time ago on Bristol City Centre where a security operative on a taxi rank had a body cam on, and he got jumped by half a dozen or so drunk guys. And he managed to get on one, and he was punching one, and the camera picked that up, him punching this guy. But what they didn't pick up was the 5 guys surrounding him and kicking him all over the place. Camera didn't pick that up, and it was only through eyewitness reports that they actually then examined that and went further and found out that actually, yes, he was punching the one guy, but he was doing that in completely from self-defense, and he was being physically attacked by a group of 6 or 7 guys altogether who were kicking him on the ground relentlessly. So that's just one example of many that are out there. Okay, so we need to understand that, and we also need to understand what the CCTV picks up. For the most part, it doesn't pick up anything that you say, and so it's all going to be your physical movements, your physical responses, your physical conversation. So we need to understand that, and we need to consider that when we talk about risk assessments, when we talk about justification, when we talk about how we actually represent ourselves after the event, when we give statements, all that sort of thing. We need to take all of these things into consideration. So this will be something that we look at, as I mentioned, on the soft skills course, and this is something that needs to be factored into your overall viewpoint when it comes to soft skills, when it comes to this non-aggressive positioning, when it comes to conflict management. So hope that's been helpful, and don't forget, guys, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave me a comment, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear.